Hey pals, it's your pal Taylor, and I know you might not have seen my beautiful face in a while on the big screen for a perspective segment, but I just wanted to let you know that I'm still here, even though we are going to be seeing a little bit of a shift within the next few months. As you know, life can be busy and chaotic sometimes, and sometimes you just have to, take a little break and step away from a few things here and there. And my pal Elizabeth, she's back to traveling all over the country for work again, as well as I'm busy with a million things I get myself involved in. So for now, there will be a perspectives break. And, I just wanted to say it's been great to be able to do this alongside of all of you, and I've loved it. And I've gained so much insight from getting to hear other people's perspectives and stories. And, I've loved everything about it. But for now, again, we want to take on a new segment where we will have various people kind of share real world events. So, it might not be myself, could be somebody else. But again, just stuff happening every day in our daily lives. I wanted to share a little bit about what's been going on around me. So, as some of you may know, I currently live in Akron, Ohio, and I have been in this area for the past 6 years or so. My job is really what brought me to this area, and, I've come to love it in the city. So, growing up in Little Madison, Ohio, there really wasn't a whole lot of diversity around me. So kind of getting to live in a city with different cultures and people, honestly, it almost feels like a breath of fresh air. But then there's also dark sides of it that I never really witnessed firsthand, again, living in a small town like Madison. And what I mean by that is really just acts of racial inequality and systemic racism. As many of you maybe have heard, recently, City of Akron was really going through the Jayland Walker case, which Jayland Walker was a 25-year-old black man who was essentially shot by officers from Akron PD back in June of 2022. And this case really sparked outrage across the country about the officer's use of force against another black person, which again is a glaring problem we see all across the US. But a special grand jury was convened the week of April 10th for the first time in Summit County history. And the grand jury's task was to decide if the 8 Akron officers who shot and killed Jayland Walker last June had really broken any laws. And so the grand jury began hearing evidence from the Ohio Attorney General's office about the shooting, which ignited weeks of protests in Akron last summer, where there were dozens of arrests made, and police at times were deploying tear gas or pepper spray to kind of disperse those crowds. Also amongst that, several downtown businesses were damaged and fires were set. And with that, I kind of wanted to just give a quick rundown and timeline of the events that happened from this shooting. Again, it's pretty tragic and hard to listen to, but again, these were a lot of the facts that, this grand jury was presented with. And I think it's also important and a key piece of this whole process, being able to hear, again, a timeline of events and what all occurred. So starting with Jayland Walker, his fiance was actually killed in a hit and run accident on Interstate 71 while traveling towards Cincinnati with her family on May 28th, 2022. On June 26, around 2:30 a.m., New Franklin police attempt to stop Jayland's vehicle for a broken taillight and a burnt out license plate bulb. The officers then entered the vehicle into their system and began to pursue it but then they abandoned the chase, deeming that it had become too dangerous to pursue for such a minor violation. The next day, June 27th, around 12:22 a.m., Akron officers again spotted Jalen's car in about the same area where he was driving in the early morning areas the previous day. And the officers initially decided not to pull the car over, but changed their minds when they saw the car return to the area and again proceed onto Route 8. While waiting at a red light, a Cuyahoga Falls officer saw the Akron officers following Jalen's car and decided to follow as well. As Jalen drove onto Route 8, the officer's dash camera, the Cuyahoga Falls officer, captured an image of Walker firing a shot. And this officer's dash camera is really, I think, ended up being the best vantage point to show Jalen firing a round from his vehicle. Officers then chased him on Route 8 and then by foot when he jumped from his rolling car. During the foot pursuit, officers attempted to shoot their tasers at Walker as the first measure to stop him. However, they were all failed efforts. As the foot pursuit continued, Jalen turned and faced the officers and reached into his hoodie and waistband, which officers took as indication that he might have been reaching for a weapon. Step-by-step still images were released of the officers' body-worn camera videos. And it was shown that at one particular point in time, Jalen was raising his arm out, and at that point in time, he was shot by responding officers who believed that he was a threat to them. A total of 94 shots were fired by 8 officers within 6.7 seconds, with 46 of those actually striking him. 46 shots. And what ended up really, causing all of this was, after he was shot and deemed dead at that point, officers ended up handcuffing him. And this video ended up being released a couple days after the shooting, and this is really what caused a lot of uproar, especially within the Akron community. Going back to this, so on April 17th, after 5 days of reviewing all of this evidence, the grand jury, made up of 6 women and 3 men, including 2 black citizens, returned a no bill in Summit County Common Pleas Court, which this just means the jurors found the actions of the officers to be justified. The announcement prompted immediate reaction from the community and Akron leaders, including U.S. Representative Amelia Strong Sykes, who issued a statement saying she will ask the U.S. Department of Justice to begin an investigation in Akron Police Department's practices. And of course, after the release of that disappointing decision, there have been a number of protests happening all throughout Akron the last 2 weeks. I just want to say, so often though, we see this American pattern in law enforcement, that the use of force is deemed justified, which I just find troubling and sickening. And as this country and community reckons with another tragic death, we find ourselves yearning for a justice system that protects all of us, not just some of us. And so really, my hope is that here at the open table, we don't stop fighting for the injustices going on around us, and we keep fighting to make change, real change within our communities. And again, whether that's educating yourself about social justice issues or getting involved with local organizations, or maybe even attending demonstrations and protests that could be happening in your area, or maybe not. Whatever it is, make your voice heard, and let's be the change that this country so desperately needs. All right, pals. I hope you all have a great Sunday, and I will see you soon.